well, and when I got out, I sold it for a good price, and
Who'd you sell it to, him or to?
yeah,
Yeah.
sold it to my partner.
And why did you want to
We
get
built
out?
a building, which
Okay.
is part of another complex building there, but we had paid the building off and everything, so we owned the building, and we made money. It was okay.
Why did you want to get out of it?
I wasn't happy with the arrangement, and him and his wife were, they were there running the business, and it was like I was working for him, and so I decided I had to do something else. So.
So where'd you go?
Well, when I left, first I went to Republic and put an application in. I went to the telephone company and put an application in, and then I put an application in at Harman Kardon, and I went to Harman Kardon at that point.
And what did you do for them when you started?
Troubleshooting radios that they were in production for those days called Hi-Fi, and they were making them and needed somebody to fix them and make sure they will come off the line and find out what's wrong, why that didn't work or why this didn't work, and test them, make sure they made the specifications and everything like that. Worked on a bench for about 2 years, and then he made me a manager of the test department, and later on a vice president and all that good stuff. It was good.
Who do you remember working with there? Who did you? I mean, bosses that you've had, or who's most memorable to you?
Well, Bob Greenberg, who was really my rabbi, I guess you'd call him. When I was there about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I guess, he became the president of Harman Kardon, and he was a Marine, and we really got along well. We got very friendly, very close. So he really helped me along. He always relied on me and everything. And there goes the phone.
Where you going?
Oh, to an Applebee's over in New Hyde Park, so I'm going to look up the directions after. All right. So you were talking about Harman Kardon.
Right.
And so how many years did you work for Harman Kardon?
19 and change, almost 20.
Almost 20.
Yeah.
And then they sold or were sold, and
Yeah, they were taken over by they had all this stuff made offshore, so they didn't need a production facility, and I was in production, so I was eventually terminated. And fortunately, at that point, Bob Greenberg was the president of Lafayette Corporation, and he said, "Come on down." I went with him for a little bit, and Lafayette went into bankruptcy, and then they were later bought up by Ward's, which was a Virginia outfit, and I could have stayed there, but I would have had to move to Richmond, and I wasn't going to do that. So then Greenberg and I went into business with ourselves in the alarm business, and
That didn't work.
that didn't fly too well. So, but got by a few years, and then I went to work for Benjamin, who bought up our alarm equipment, and I went with the package, and eventually that petered out. He moved to Florida, and he went out of business, and I've been working on my own since.
do you guys ever? I mean, you've lived all of your lives in the same town. Do you ever regret not having moved somewhere else, or do you reflect and think that staying here was always a good thing for you?
Mom was happy here.
Yeah, I was never.
He
gonna
would
go.
never.
I was never going to go. The nearest I would have ever come is when I got out of service, coming from California, which at that time was paradise, and if she would have been willing to go to California then, we possibly could have been in San Diego today and been rich real estate magnates, because property was available and people were buying it up and selling it later. But she wouldn't go leave her mother, so that took care of that. that was the only time it would ever been a possibility. After that, forget about it.
And you had 4 kids.
Yes.
And who was your favorite?
Don't answer on the grounds you may incriminate yourself.
I don't think I had a favorite. I think you got off the best, I think, because you were like an only child.
Yeah, I was.
We were a second family.
I was
Yeah.
a second family.
You were born when we could afford you. The
Yeah.
other three we couldn't afford.
But they all turned out very well. Very proud of all of them.
So, anything you look back
I
on?
wish they hadn't moved away. Wish they would have said, "Oh, I can't leave my mommy."
No way.
That's not the way it goes. And a lot of people I talk to too, you know, they have kids all over and grandkids all over.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'm not the only one.
Most of the people that we know that have moved away because their children were someplace else. So they moved where their children were.
Right, right.
We just never did that.
You're anchored. You're anchored down here.
Mm.
And Dad, you later in life got very interested in computers.
Oh yeah.
When was the first time you saw a home computer and got interested in it?
We were in the mall. It must have been the Massapequa Mall or whatever, and a Radio Shack, and they had a TRS-80 computer. Very first one. It was $500. I said, "Boy, I think I like it." She said, "What? You can spend $500 for what?" But I did. I bought it.
As you see, he always did what he wanted to do.
And the fact that I bought it went with the purchase. You got a 9 weeks of instructions in a school that Radio Shack ran over in Bethpage with an excellent instructor. Got me hooked completely to programming, and that was the end of the line. Everything that came out after that, I had to do this, I had to get that, I had to. So I've written in like 4 different languages already by now, and
If he was younger, I'd make him go out and get a full-time job.
I could do that, but I'm not going to do that.
What would you do with all your part-time jobs? You'd have to get up 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that Radio Shack thing really did hook me. I mean, it had 16K of memory in it, and I was able to program the whole fire department thing using just that memory. It was a challenge. It was a good, and the biggest thing, and it's probably the biggest thing that ever happened in my life, is that when you have something like that and you're programming, and you got a problem, it's not working or this and that, and you eventually solve the problem. The biggest ego trip in the world. Just nothing like it. It's just, used to get it a little bit when I would fix a television that was tough, a tough dog, you know, and you finally fix it, oh wow, yeah. But this was 100 times better than that. Just knowing that you can do something, and no matter what, and whatever problems along the way, eventually you do it.
No.
Big ego trip.
Well, Tylenol helps. It used to be Excedrin.
If I would get a real tough thing, you know, it really bogged me down, say, okay, put it down, walk away, take a couple of Excedrin, go back an hour later, bingo, get it. Happened.
Do you think if computers didn't come along, do you think that you would have gotten bored with the electronic stuff that you were doing? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even what I do now with the electronics, with the fire department radios and stuff, it's the same thing all the time. Yeah. When a thing comes in with a certain thing, I know exactly what it is. I fixed 1,000 of them already like that. There's no challenge.
Mhm.
So it's a job. It's something you got to do. It takes time, and it's something you can do, and you can do it easily. But there's no challenge there at all, because there is nothing new. And I am bored with that now, but I don't have to worry because I got the computer. So.
So, is there anything else left to do in your life? You look back and say, you know
tell
what?
them about
What did we not
when
cover?
John was born.
What happened when John was born?
Oh, and Dad still had his Charlie's radio and TV shop.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't feeling good that morning, and he said, well, I'm going to go down to the shop, but, you know, if you want me, call me. I'll be there. I'll be there.
Mm.
So I called up a little while later, and George answered, no, Charlie's not here.
Mm.
What do you mean he's not here? I have to go to the hospital. He's over at the Catholic Church.
I was fixing the priest's TV.
But I guess he went over and got you.
Oh, they called me. They
Oh.
called me.
One of the many.
And what was the worst of times?
Oh,
What's the worst thing that ever happened? I know what it's worse for me. I don't know about you.
and Chris was burned.
Yeah. That was the worst.
Chris
Oh,
was 3 years old when he was burned by hot boiling water.
Hmm.
And then, when you were little, you ran over to Nana's, you ran across the street to Uncle's house, and just now you can't let the kids run like that. But in the 50s you did.
Mm-hmm.
And he went over there and they were having tea, and the hot water was accidentally spilled on him. So that was a year of skin grafting and not healing, and then going back in again. But in a year, it finally healed
It was
up.
like a miracle.
Yeah.
For all that time, he had skin grafts. It wouldn't take. Gonna have another one. So he was peeling parts of his other body, going to, and in the hospital. The worst thing, kid that age in the hospital, and then you're visiting him, you're going to have to leave, and he's crying. He don't want you to go.
Mm.
You couldn't stay there in them days. I guess you can now. That was bad. But we kept changing the dressings. No improvement. Still leaking. Still doing this.
And
And we went someplace away for a weekend and left him with
my
her
mother.
Came home. It was okay.
Hmm.
The dressings were dry. It was like a miracle.
Hmm.
We should have left him with her
Yeah.
a year and a half.
Well, who's to know?
Just,
Hmm.
I don't know what made it change. I guess it was just time. It was
Yeah.
just caught
Mm.
up with him. That was bad. Got a call from one of the head local police at that time, Harold Marquardt, called me up and said, Charlie, I have to tell you, your son's okay, but he was burned. Oh boy, very bad.
So other than your own marriage, hold that thought. Pretty
All those years.
pretty good.
That's what it
So-
seemed like, 2 hours.
Other than your own wedding and the birth of your children, what were the best parts of your life that you would look back on, and anything that stands out other than those easy events, so to speak, most obvious events? Anything else that you look back on and with happiness, pride, joy that
Yeah.
is really memorable?
The weddings, children weddings, your graduation, college, high school.
Mm-hmm.
You were valedictorian, right?
I think I was, yeah. Mine was a little bit more legitimate than yours,
Hopefully.
but I only had 40 kids in my class, so that kind of does
Oh, I only had
delegitimize it.
80.
I had 40 kids, and all the smart ones were either a year ahead or a year behind, so I got lucky.
Right. I had one kid that doubled up too because he was afraid he wasn't going to be valedictorian.
Oh, really?
George Baker,
Oh, yeah.
the doctor's son. So he skipped ahead, doubled up so he
Went ahead because there were dumber kids ahead of him.
And I actually had one gal who was genuinely much smarter than I was in classes. I mean, just not a lot, but she was clearly smarter. But she was so smart that she went for this overseas for a year, studying overseas.
That's right,
and
she
it-
left school, I remember that.
It
yeah.
kind of messed her up in terms of how they calculate all those things. So that didn't help her cause there. So I think that helped me a little bit there. The smart ones are either a year ahead, a year behind, or they left the country. It really all worked out quite well. Any parting words you'd like to leave to your grandkids, your kids, your great grandkids, and those who will come who have not yet been born? Any advice?
Save your money.
Save your money.
Save your money. Good.
Right.
Keys to a happy life.
Right. I just
Keys
wish-
to a happy
wish
marriage.
A happy marriage, right. Try to compromise and don't always try to be right.
Well, I hope you follow that advice yourself.
I did.
I heard on the radio the other day somebody said you can advice to a newly married man, you can either be right or you can be happy in
Right.
your conversations with and arguments with your wife. So which do you want to be?
It's like the guy that was married for 60 years. He told the guy he's been married for 60 years and only had one argument with my wife. She started on the wedding day and it's going to be over soon.
And how many years have you been married?
59?
No, really?
59. 1948.
It'll be
59.
59.
In
It'll-
November, it'll be
Yeah,
59,
November
yeah.
will be 59.
And you were married on Thanksgiving Day?
Yep.
Yes. Hmm.
And I still don't understand why you chose Thanksgiving Day to get married. Was that
I thought it would be nice for the families.
She liked turkey and, you
For
know,
the families to get together on Thanksgiving.
and that was a Thursday.
that was a Thursday,
So
obviously.
so you didn't get married on a traditional Sunday. You chose to go.
And
You
then
could have
the whole-
gotten married the Sunday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And in the whole 59 years, I think it's only fallen on Thanksgiving
A few times,
maybe
yeah.
6 or 7 times, that's it. Every time
Good
it
day.
almost be Thanksgiving, leap year, it'll go
Oh.
over. And didn't happen to be Thanksgiving very, very many times.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.